Shalom and welcome to my weekly video message. Firstly, I'd like to thank each of you, our dearest friends and supporters, for your generosity and partnership throughout 2020, and particularly for the incredible response to our end-of-year campaign. I want you to know that your friendship is heartwarming and gives me and Devorah strength and inspiration to do our part of making an impact in the lives of so many in our community, especially as we continue to overcome the challenges of the coronavirus pandemic. This Chabad is called Shabbat Chazak, when Jews around the world celebrate the conclusion of the reading of the first book of the Torah, the book of Bereshit, the book of Genesis. Whenever we conclude the public reading of one of the 5 books of the Torah, the entire community calls out, Chazak, Chazak, v'nit chazek. Be strong, and may we be strengthened, encouraging each other in the continued studying of Torah, which is our source of life and strength. The very last portion in the book of Genesis, Vayechi, which will be read this Shabbat, concludes with the account of Joseph's passing. And finally, in the very last verse, we read that Joseph's coffin was interred in Egypt, which raises a question. After reading in this very portion that his father Jacob pleads to be buried in the land of Canaan and not in Egypt, how do we find strength and encouragement from Joseph's death and his burial in the land of Egypt? So here's a beautiful and moving insight that the Rebbe gave on Shabbat Chazak in January of 1987. You see, the stories in the book of Genesis aren't just plain old Bible tales. Each of the stories about our Avot and Imaot, our patriarchs and matriarchs, serve to inspire and guide their descendants, especially in the dark times of exile, and a reminder of God's promise that they would one day return to their homeland with greatness and with wealth. Ultimately, however, in order for the Jewish people to survive and even thrive in the lengthy exile, they needed not only promises, blessings, and a legacy to aspire to, but also the presence of an actual source of strength to help them overcome the darkness that they endured. And this was the purpose of Joseph's burial in Egypt, and the reason it constitutes the most invigorating conclusion to the book of Genesis. It was the physical presence of Joseph's holy remains that gave the Jewish people in Egypt the strength to overcome the difficult exile that lay ahead of them, and to ultimately reach a redemptive state when they would be able to enter the promised land. In the Rebbe's talk, he takes note of the fact that if this was true in previous exiles, this is certainly true today, and points out that in his infinite kindness, God established the resting place of the previous Rebbe, whose name, too, was Joseph, here in the United States. This, the Rebbe says, should serve as a source of chizuk, of strength and inspiration to us, during and especially as we near the end of this deep and dark exile, with hope and strength to overcome our challenges. Indeed, the Rebbe would frequent the Ohel, the previous Rebbe's resting place, often standing there for hours, reading the heartfelt requests from people from all over the world, who would turn to him for blessing, advice, encouragement, and inspiration. To this very day, thousands from all walks of life travel from across the globe to visit the Ohel, the resting place of the previous Rebbe, and today also the resting place of our Rebbe in Queens. Personally, in addition to the significance of the resting place of the righteous in general, and the opportunity to pray for my family and community, I find tremendous strength and hope each time I stand in the Rebbe's presence at the Ohel and reflect on the wisdom, love for humanity, and incredibly positive energy that the Rebbe continues to have on our generation. The generation the Rebbe coined the first generation of redemption. Many a time I have visited the Ohel with a pressing issue or a personal challenge, to return home with a tremendous feeling of confidence and motivation to deal with the challenge, and often even seeing them resolve in a miraculous manner. Though in recent months I haven't visited the Rebbe's Ohel as much as I did BCE, before Corona era, I still try to go as much as possible. And each time I do, I feel blessed, encouraged, and motivated to continue serving our community and doing everything in my power to help others and prepare myself and those around me to be ready to greet Mashiach. As we enter 2021, remember that Hashem gives each of us the strength and ability to overcome and rise above every challenge we face. Of course, for some challenges, we may also need a friend, a coach, a therapist, a counselor, or maybe a rabbi. But for every challenge we face, we can find inspiration from the presence of our Rebbe at the Ohel, or from his hundreds of volumes of deep and insightful teachings of Torah to navigate every moment of darkness in our lives. Wishing you happiness and health for 2021. Chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek. Be strong, my friends, be strong. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And as the Rebbe taught us, sometimes all you gotta do is open your eyes, and you'll see it. Shabbat Shalom.